Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, in light of the Dodgers signing 30 international free agents, we're going to talk about the 10 best international free agent signings in the Dodgers history. So, let's get Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Dodger fans. I am Jeff Snider of Baseball Essential, and this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm flying solo today, but Vince should be back with me tomorrow. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every day. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. This is the daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. If you were listening to Friday's episode, I mentioned that I had clipped myself accidentally saying the world champion Los Angeles Dodgers. And then I decided in the editing process, I'm just going to leave that in because I like the way it sounds. So you got to hear the behind the scenes of me getting mad at myself for saying it wrong and correcting myself. And I just, left it there for you. Today, I said everything right, I think, so far. But there's still time. We've got 29 minutes left in this podcast, so I assume I'm going to say some things wrong. Speaking of things I said wrong, a couple weeks ago, I had a little bit of a mistake. I was talking about Jerry Royster being in the Dodgers dugout when Hank Aaron hit his 715th home run. And the reason he was there because of Ken McMullen's wife's health issues. And I got it slightly wrong. I had gotten my years mixed up, and Ken McMullen's wife got sick just before the season in 1973. In 1974, the reason Ken McMullen wasn't with the team was actually because his wife had just passed away. So that's why Jerry Royster was in the dugout. Even though he didn't play for the Dodgers during that call-up, he was there as McMullen's temporary replacement. So anyway, just clearing the record on that because I know how much you guys hate it when I mess things up. So, all right, 28 minutes left. Let's see what else I can mess up. This weekend, the international free agent signing period started, whatever used to be called the J2, because it started on January 2nd. I don't know why it started in mid-January this year. I'm sure there was a reason that makes sense. I don't know. But the Dodgers signed 30 players from 10 different countries. And, this is mostly Latin American countries, although Russia makes an appearance. Spain is a Spanish-speaking country, but not a Latin American country. But you have a couple others that are like Curacao. There was a player from Curacao. Overall, we have Aruba, Venezuela, Mexico, Spain, Dominican Republic, Nicaragua, Panama, Colombia, Curacao, Russia. I think one more that I'm missing. I'm just scanning the list right now. 9 or 10 countries anyway. Dodgers signed a bunch of players, including the two biggest names were Samuel Munoz from the Dominican Republic, who was the 7th overall ranked player in this international class. And then pitcher whose name I don't know how to say, Aximius Morales. It's Accimias, I believe. Morales, he is a pitcher from, where's he from? Sorry, I had this. I think he was from Venezuela. From Venezuela. So overall, and he was the number 2 ranked pitcher in the class, like 37th overall. Most of the top of the class is hitters. He was number 2 ranked pitcher at 37th overall. Overall, 15 pitchers, 3 catchers, and 12 other players for a total of 30. And I am not an expert on the international draft or signing class, as you can imagine. The first time I heard of any of these players was in the last couple months, hearing occasional rumblings about who might be signing with the Dodgers. And those rumblings meant almost nothing to me because I don't know the names. But what I do know is that a lot of the time these names end up being pretty important. Right now we've seen, the Dodgers have players, some of their top, they traded Keibert Ruiz. He had been an international free agent signing a few years ago. He was obviously part of the trade for Max Scherzer. Julio Aureus is a big one. He was actually, we're going to talk more about him in a little bit later. So there are guys, Diego Cartaya, one of the Dodgers' top prospects right now, top catching prospect. He was signed a few years ago out of this class. So there are some names on this list that we will be familiar with, and it's kind of fun to look and try to guess which ones they are. And there's names right now that are just a name on a list, and we'll look back at this list, 6 years from now and say, oh, wow, look at that name. That name has become important to me. So that's exciting about this, not knowing which ones they are. But I thought today what I would talk about is the Dodgers have a history of international signings. Back before, there's a lot of parity now in the league. Every team, almost every team has a heavy scouting presence in Latin America. It's all regulated now. It used to be just the Wild West. Whatever teams could find these players, they would sign them. And the Dodgers were very proactive in the Dominican Republic and other Latin American countries at basically trying to find these players. And so you had a lot of players who the Dodgers signed out of Latin America who end up becoming really important parts of the team. And so I wanted to go through basically the 10 best players the Dodgers have signed out of Latin America. And by best, I don't necessarily mean the best overall. I mean best for the Dodgers. I'm not including players they signed out of Asia, Chanho Park, Hideo Nomo, those ones. That process out of those Asian leagues is a little bit different. So I'm just going with kind of the Latin American prospects who ended up being good for the Dodgers. Now, Roberto Clemente won't show up on this list. The Dodgers signed him as an international free agent back in the 50s and ended up losing him in the Rule 5 draft to the Pirates, and he went on to have his Hall of Fame career with the Pirates. So he won't make the list. But I'm going to talk about the 10 best. I'm going to sort them by worst to best, and by worst, I still mean worst for the Dodgers. So the 10th best, we should say, not worst. 10th best, and our 10th best is Pedro Martinez. Pedro Martinez only pitched parts of 2 seasons, total of 67 games with the Dodgers, 64 of them in relief. And in 1993, he had an excellent season for the Dodgers. He pitched 65 games, 63 of them in relief, had a 2.61 ERA, had a 3.0 WAR, according to Baseball Reference, and was very, very good and for the Dodgers, and was obviously a top prospect. The Dodgers had concerns about his durability, maybe, and basically decided to try to sell high on Pedro Martinez. And unfortunately, it was not selling high. His value in hindsight was as low as it was ever going to be because he went on to be the best pitcher in baseball for a long time, won 3 Cy Young Awards in 4 years, finished second the other year, and was just absolutely a dominant pitcher. And he's still one that gets cited all the time when we're talking about bad moves for the Dodgers. The Dodgers trading Pedro Martinez to the Expos for Delino DeShields. We talked about this last week. Vince and I did, how we're blaming Jody Reed for this. The Dodgers needed a second baseman. Delino DeShields was good. And they traded Pedro Martinez for him. And that's a bummer. Pedro Martinez is our 10th best international Latin American signing for the Dodgers in history. I'm going to come back in a minute. We've got 9 left to go through. So thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every day, and keep it Locked On Dodgers. Hey, it's the new year, and that means New Year's resolutions. If your New Year's resolution is about getting fit or eating healthier, you need to include Built Bar in your plan because it is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar or maybe even better. Makes it a lot easier to stick to your resolution because it tastes so good you will want to eat it, unlike other protein bars that taste like garbage. You want to eat healthy, but it's so boring. You just want chocolate. Well, guess what? Built Bars are all covered in 100% real chocolate, and they are all healthy. 130-ish calories, 4 or 5 grams of sugar and carbs, 17 grams of protein. Compared to a candy bar, it's a no-brainer. Candy bars, you're not getting any protein, and you're getting like 30 grams of sugar. and dozens of carbs. You don't want that. You want a Built Bar because it is delicious and healthy, and there's no better combination. Just go to Built.com and use promo code LOCKED15, and you will get 15% off your next order. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, I'm back. We're continuing our journey through the 10 best international free agents out of Latin America that the Dodgers have signed. And we did Pedro Martinez coming in at number 9. This one might be a little bit controversial, but that would be recency bias probably. Number 9 is Julio Aureus. Julio is currently a Dodger. He won 20 games in 2021, went 20-3. Outstanding season, and he has been a very good pitcher for the Dodgers when he's been healthy. He obviously had health issues, had the shoulder surgery. He's had maybe some little durability issues, not durability issues, just he hasn't. This is the first time he's ever pitched. 2021 was the first time he ever pitched 80 innings in a season, even in the big leagues, and he pitched 185 2/3. And so we're basing this list just based on WAR in a season. And Julio, while he was very good in other seasons, his WAR was usually pretty low because of volume. And so he had never topped 1.2 WAR in a season before 2021 when he had 4.4. But Julio obviously is still under contract with the Dodgers for several more years, and hopefully will be with them even longer than that. He's still very young. For as long as he's been around. He just turned 25 in August. Outstanding pitcher, and hopefully going to be a Dodger for a long time. His 2021 season puts him at number 9 on our list of best Dodgers international Latin American signings in history. Coming up at number 8 is an old name we haven't heard in a while, Pedro Estacio. In 1996, Pedro Estacio was very good for the Dodgers. His win-loss total doesn't really show it. He went 9-8, but he had a 3.44 ERA in 211 2/3 innings. Just really, really good. Hardly struck out anybody. It's a different time. His strikeout per 9 that year was 5.5, but he was so good at keeping runs off the board, limiting hard contact, all that stuff that you want. He had a 4.6 WAR for the Dodgers that year. It was his second to last season with the Dodgers. He pitched part of 1997 with the Dodgers and then was traded to the Rockies for Eric Young Sr. and came back to the Dodgers later in his career, if I remember right. Did he? No, I might be thinking of somebody else. No, he did not come back to the Dodgers. But for those first couple years, after the Dodgers signed him out of the Dominican Republic in 1987, he made his big league debut in 1992 and, pitched for them for 5.5 years and was really good. So that 1996 season gets him the number 8 spot on our list, Pedro Estacio. Coming up next, our number 7 is Pedro Martinez's brother, Ramon Martinez. Ramon Martinez was signed also out of the Dominican Republic a few years before his brother Pedro. He was a few years older than Pedro. The Dodgers signed Pedro in 1988. They signed Ramon in 1984, and he actually made his major league debut in 1988 for those world champion Dodgers. He didn't pitch in the postseason, he didn't pitch in the postseason for them. He did eventually pitch in the postseason for the Dodgers in 1995 and 96, which was shortly before he left the Dodgers. He went on to pitch for the Red Sox for a couple years and a couple games with the Pirates, and then his career was over. But in 1993, Ramon Martinez pitched 211 2/3 innings and had a 4.7 WAR. That was because, despite having a 10-12 record, 3.44 ERA. That's funny. That's the exact same ERA and the exact same number of innings pitched that Pedro Estacio had in 1996. That's what Ramon Martinez had in 1993. That's really weird. I hadn't noticed that until just now. Again, also hardly struck out anybody, only 127 strikeouts, I think Estacio had 130 in his season. Yep. So, wow. So, Ramon Martinez's 1993 and Pedro Estacio's 1996 are very, very similar to the point that they were only separated by 0.1 WAR. Estacio was 4.6. Ramon was 4.7. Ramon had a lot of good season with the Dodgers. He won 20 games and was an all-star in 1990. Had 12 complete games that year, including 3 shutouts. Went 17-13 in 91. Vince and I talked about Ramon Martinez last week when we were talking about whether Hideo Nomo was the best Dodgers pitcher of the 90s, and we agreed that it was probably Ramon Martinez. Outstanding pitcher. He did actually come back and re-sign with the Dodgers in 2001, but he didn't make the team and caught on with the Pirates for those last 4 games that I mentioned. So Ramon Martinez is number 7 on our list. Moving on to number 6, we have another position player who was actually signed at the same time as Julio Aureus on the same scouting trip to Mexico. But this was not a Mexican player. This was a Cuban ball player named Yasiel Puig. Yasiel Puig is one of the most polarizing Dodgers in history, as you know. Everybody has strong opinions about Puig, and his first 2 seasons were awesome. His best year by actual quality was actually his rookie year in 2013. He had a 4.7 WAR in just 104 games played, just 432 plate appearances. In 2014, he made his first All-Star team and actually had his highest WAR with the Dodgers, 4.9. But that was in 640 plate appearances the full season, so he was better on a rate basis in 2013, but better overall in 2014, or more valuable. And then it was basically downhill from there. Yasiel Puig, for all that promise, he never got even close to 4 wins in a season again. His highest WAR after that was 2017. He had 3.4 WAR, and just overall never quite lived up to that potential. Obviously, off-the-field problems have haunted him too. He's currently out of the big leagues. We'll see if that ever changes again. He had well-known issues with accepting coaching on outfield positioning that may or may not have cost the Dodgers the 2017 World Series. And overall, he was inconsistent and erratic, a lot of fun to watch, and, just overall, so many things. We could do a full month of episodes on Yasiel Puig and not even scratch the surface. We're not going to do that for our purposes. It suffices us to say that he is the Dodgers' 6th best international Latin American signing in history. Up next at number 5 is Alejandro Pena. Now, Alejandro Pena is really, really interesting. In 1984, he actually led the major leagues in ERA at 2.48. He went 12-6 in 28 starts. He did not even get a single down ballot vote in the Cy Young Award voting. Whatever it was, he was not flashy. Maybe it was because he only made 28 starts, and back then some guys were making 36, 38, even 40 starts. But Alejandro Pena, that 1984 season was worth 5.0 WAR for him, and just outstanding season as a starter, which is really interesting to me because by the time I started paying much attention, in 1985 he was hurt most of the year. He only pitched 4 1/3 innings, and 85 was kind of my first year of paying attention to the Dodgers. 86 is the first year I really remember, and by then he was mostly reliever. He pitched in 24 games, only 10 starts. It was coming back from that injury, and they kind of shifted him to the bullpen. By 87, he was almost a full-time reliever, 37 games, only 7 starts. And by 1988, when the Dodgers won the World Series, he was purely reliever, and he was awesome. 60 games, all in relief, 191 ERA in 94 1/3 innings. Just an outstanding season for Alejandro Pena in 1988. 1.7 WAR out of the bullpen is really, really valuable. And one of my favorite Alejandro Pena notes is that he was actually the winning pitcher for the Dodgers in Game 1 of the 1988 World Series. Kirk Gibson hit his famous home run off Dennis Eckersley. Pena had pitched the top of the 9th inning. He was the winning pitcher in that game. Overall, spent 9 years with the Dodgers, was outstanding, basically. And then traveled to a bunch of different teams after that. He went to the Mets in 1990, to the Braves in 91, to the Pirates in 94, to the Red Sox in 95, Marlins in 95, back to the Braves in 95, and then to the Marlins in 96. So just all over the place after he left the Dodgers. But his time with the Dodgers was very good, very valuable. He played on a World Series winning team. He played on the 85 team that lost in the NLCS. And he was on the 1981 team that won the World Series and pitched. He didn't pitch in the World Series. He pitched in the NLCS. So has 2 World Championship rings with the Dodgers and another one with the Braves in 1995. So good career for Alejandro Pena. Good enough to make him 5th on our list of Dodgers international free agent signings out of Latin America. He was signed in 1978. So I'm going to come back in a minute. We'll do our top 4. So thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every day, and keep it locked on Dodgers. BetOnline.ag would like to wish you a happy new betting year as we continue our march to the playoffs and beyond. BetOnline remains the number 1 spot for all the best sports wagering action for 2022. New year and a new updated desktop and mobile website. To sign up today and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit, just use our promo code LOCKEDON to get started at betonline.ag. From football, basketball, hockey, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers for 2022. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, we're into our top 4. Coming in at number 4, another name that we don't think about very often. He was signed by the Dodgers in 1991 as a free agent. He was actually also part of an Eric Young Sr. trade. I mentioned that the Dodgers traded Pedro Estacio to the Rockies to get Eric Young. Well, in 1999, they traded Eric Young and Ismail Valdez to the Cubs, and they got a bunch of people you never heard of for that. Ismail Valdez is number 4 on our list, and that's mostly on the strength of his season in 1997. With the Dodgers in 1997, he had a 5.3 WAR, 196 and 2/3 innings, and very good 2.65 ERA. He only went 10 and 11. That's kind of a recurring theme with these 90s Dodgers pitchers. Their best seasons, they didn't necessarily have good win-loss records because Dodgers had some tough luck pitchers in the 90s a lot of times. But Ismail Valdez was signed out of Mexico. Obviously the Dodgers have had some really good luck with Mexican pitchers. He's the second of 3 who will be on our list here today, and pitched with the Dodgers for about 7 seasons. Most of his career was with the Dodgers, over 1,000 innings with the Dodgers out of his 1,827 innings career. From the Dodgers, he went to the Cubs, and then the Angels, Rangers, Mariners, Padres, and Marlins. He was only pitched in the postseason 2 years, both times in the division series with the Dodgers in 95 and 96, and was not... He pitched 1 game, 7 shutout innings in 95, and no earned runs, 2 runs allowed. And then in 96, 1 game, 6 1/3 innings, allowed 3 earned runs. So just kind of lackluster postseason career, but it was really good for 7 years with the Dodgers for the most part, good for most of those years. And that's good. That 97 season is good enough to get him 4th on our list here of best Dodgers international free agent signings from Latin America. Coming in at number 3, and this one might seem controversial until you hear who number 1 and 2 are. Number 3 is Fernando Valenzuela, one of the most popular Dodgers in history, of course, and one of the best pitchers the Dodgers had in the 80s. As a rookie, he won the Cy Young Award and the Rookie of the Year Award in the strike-shortened year in 1981. That probably would have ended up being his best year, but because it was shortened, he only started 25 games, had 4.8 WAR in those 25 starts, which is really, really good. Followed that up in 82 with 5.0 WAR. But the 2 seasons that get him on this list are 85 and 86, when he had 5.4 WAR in each of those seasons. And he had his only 20-win season in 1986. He went 21 and 11, finished 2nd in the Cy Young Award voting, in 1986. 85, he went 17-10. Just outstanding pitcher through 1986. And then, unfortunately, things started to catch up with him. 87, dropped off a little bit, 4.1 WAR. And then after that, basically his career was over. He just kept on pitching for another decade. But starting in 1988, he never topped 3 WAR again, even in a season, and only topped 1.5 WAR one time. He had a resurgence in 1996 with the Padres, had 2.8 WAR. But other than that, Fernando's career is basically over, probably due to overuse. Injuries caught up to him, and it's a bummer. Fernando is one of the great what might have been stories in baseball history. After having, in his first 8 seasons, he had 32 WAR. He was clearly on a Hall of Fame trajectory. He finished his career with 37.3 WAR. And, if he gets into the Hall of Fame, it will be more on the fame aspect than on the pitching performance. But obviously, still one of the most beloved Dodgers players in history. He's been an announcer for the Dodgers Spanish language team for years. Outstanding. Everybody loves everything about Fernando Valenzuela. And he is the 3rd best Dodgers international signing on my list. Coming in at number 2, signed also in 1988, along with Pedro Martinez, is Raul Monteci. Raul Monteci, the season that gets him on this list is not his Rookie of the Year season. It's actually 1997. But Monteci won the Rookie of the Year award in 1994, a strike-shortened season again. He batted .306 with 16 homers in 112 games. Won the Rookie of the Year award. He was the 2nd of 5 in a row. No, 3rd of 5 after Karros and Piazza. Monteci was the 3rd one to win the Rookie of the Year award, followed by Hideo Nomo and Todd Hollandsworth in 95 and 96. He won a Gold Glove in his 2nd year and made the All-Star team in 95. And then in 97, he played 159 games, batted .310, .360 on-base percentage, .541 slugging percentage, 30 homers, 87 RBIs, a .901 OPS, which was a .140 OPS plus. Finished 15th in the MVP voting, won another Gold Glove. And again, the sky seemed like the limit for Raul Monteci. It was all downhill for him. He struggled in 98, and then in 99, it was a little bit worse even. Then the Dodgers traded him to the Blue Jays for Sean Green. He ended up playing for Blue Jays, the Yankees, the Diamondbacks, the Pirates, the Angels, and the Braves. He played in those 95 and 96 postseasons with the Dodgers, and then played in the ALDS with the Yankees in 2002. Was probably a teammate of maybe Clay Bellinger. I don't remember what years Clay Bellinger was there, but he might have been on that team. And Monteci, unfortunately, in his post-playing career, became the mayor of his hometown in the Dominican Republic, and then went to prison for embezzling funds from the town. So he, I believe, is currently sitting in prison for a few more years. His son, sometimes called Raul Jr., sometimes called Adalberto, is in the big leagues with the Royals. But Raul Monteci is the 2nd best Dodgers international free agent signing, which leads us to number 1, and that is Adrian Beltray. Adrian Beltray gets this based on the strength of his 2004 season. Just outstanding season. 9.6 WAR, 7.4 of that came on offense, 2.5 on defense. I've explained before, those don't always add up to the same number because there's defensive value factored in, blah, 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 blah. He finished 2nd in the MVP voting, and that was unfortunately his last year with the Dodgers. After they had signed him out of the Dominican Republic in 1994, he debuted with the Dodgers in 98 when he was just 19 years old, and like barely 19 years old, 2 months after he turned 19, and played with the Dodgers for 7 years and was really, really good. 7 years, was really good and getting better. But his 2004 season did seem like an outlier. It was by far the best he had been. He hadn't hit more than 23 home runs in a season, and then he hit 48. He had never batted over 290, and he suddenly batted 334. Everything about that season kind of screamed outlier, but it turned out that maybe he was just coming into his prime. He never had that season again, was never that good again. But he went on to play 5 years with the Mariners, then a year with the Red Sox, and then spent 8 years with the Rangers. And so if the Dodgers had known he had 14 years left in his career and that he was going to compile what he did, after leaving the Dodgers, he had 70.1 WAR after leaving the Dodgers. Clearly a mistake to let him go, but probably an understandable one. I don't think anybody would have predicted he would turn into what he did, and but still sad to see him go. And so even though he only played through age 25 with the Dodgers, Adrian Beltray, on the strength of his last season with the Dodgers, 2004, is the Dodgers' best international free agent signing in history, according to this guy right here. So that was fun, just a fun way to think about when we're looking at this list of guys and thinking, okay, Ilmerson Colon, Domingo Geronimo, Edgar Leon, Oswaldo Osorio. So many names that right now are just names on a list. And who knows, we may have our Pedro Martinez or our Adrian Beltray or even our Alejandro Pena on this list, and we'll look back and say, oh, wow, that was a good year for the Dodgers. That's what we're hoping for. Dodgers signed 30 guys, which is more than something, not the most. I think the Angels signed 34. There was a lot of people signed, and hopefully, the Dodgers are pretty good at this, and hopefully they will now kick into gear on their player development system and turn some of these guys into the superstars of the future, and that'll be fun to watch. So thank you. That's going to do it for me. I really appreciate you making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms. If you're not watching or listening to Locked On Dodgers every day, please add 1 or 2 days a month to your rotation. If you have friends or family who might like the show, please tell them about it. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at Vince Samperio. I'm on Twitter at Snydog, and the DMs are open in all of those places. Our email address is lockedondodgers@gmail.com. And our phone number for voicemails or texts is 323-863-LOCK, 5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree, you just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.